Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I am Mark Cook. I am flying solo, kind of solo. I do have a guest, but I am handling all the controls. I'm the producer. I'm going to be pushing all the buttons. So there's a chance that this could be an absolute train wreck, but we're going to try really hard not to screw it up because we have a real professional beside me, as people can see, our good friend.
Who's that?
He's back there on your bulletin board, right there in the middle. Is that Jameis Winston? No. Anyway, this is our buddy from the Tampa Bay Times, our good friend, Mr. Matt Baker. Matt, how are you, my friend? And thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm ready for this draft thing coming up. You know, it's been a long while, and then the season goes into the off season and spring ball, and then the draft, and then after this, I get to exhale a little bit. So I'm ready to sprint through the finish, though.
Where's the Baker family vacation at? Have you guys decided yet? Because I'm sure you're a lot like us. You have to wait till after the NFL draft, and then you've got a little bit of a window before college football, in your case, starts and the NFL starts in our case. Where the Bakers going? Have you decided?
We've got something in July with some of my in-laws up in North Carolina. We're looking at maybe doing something in June as well, just because it's been a long time. I've got a lot of vacation because spoiler, I didn't get to use any last year.
Wow.
Well, I mean, shoot, we didn't know if there was going to be a season, right? So
That's
I
true.
wasn't going to use vacation then. So I'm looking
and
forward
what
to
were you going to do? You weren't allowed to do anything last year, Matt. You just had to sit at home for a week. Why waste vacation time when you're already at home anyway? Is the way I look at it.
There you go. That's true.
Well, Matt, I don't know if you know this or not, but our Pewter Nation podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Celsius. Celsius is the premier energy drink on the market. A great product. It's not a product that's going to be loaded with sugar that's going to be that high and then that certain crash. It's going to keep you sustained throughout the time period, the day. Some guys drink a couple a day. Some guys can drink one every couple of days. Some guys can drink one an hour. I'm not saying replace your coffee with it, but it's not a bad alternative. It's certainly the best alternative if you're looking for an energy drink on the market. And we've got a quick little sponsorship commercial we're going to play right now, and we'll be back to tell you, readers and listeners, how you can possibly get a Scotty Miller autographed football. Well, you see how we're going to do that. Now, I'm going to play the right video now. See, I knew I was going to screw this up. Just give you guys a little peek of what you see here. There you go, Matt. That is our good friends at Celsius, their little commercial. And here's something that's really cool that we're doing. We're going to give away an autographed Scotty Miller football and a 1-month supply of your favorite Celsius flavor. Now, there's going to be 9 winners of the 1-month supply and then 1 winner of a month supply plus a Scotty Miller autographed football. So it's real simple how you do it. You subscribe to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. You follow Celsius Official on Facebook, on Twitter, or Instagram. You follow Scotty Miller on Twitter or Instagram. Just go to @MillerTime, 3_10. Screenshot those images, your proof of subscription to the Pewter Nation podcast and our Pewter Report TV and our podcast and all of the follows of Scotty Miller. Then you just go to celsius.com/Pewter. You submit everything and you will be entered in to win that Scotty Miller. You see Scotty in this picture right here signing a football. You'll get that. Or you may end up with a month supply of your favorite flavor of Celsius. So anyway, we hope people will do that and subscribe, all of those good things. Our good friends at Celsius, we appreciate all that they do for us. I think I got that right. Was that okay, Matt? Did I do okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Well, you give me like a C grade on it. I mean, I feel like I'm a college athlete right now, and you're going to write an article about me in a couple minutes.
C for Celsius sounds about right?
Or Cook. I'll take either one. But anyway, In case people don't know, Matt, just tell them which I don't know why anybody listening would not know this, but anyway, tell everybody what you do and how long you've been doing it and your job with the Tampa Bay Times.
Sure. I've been with the Times. It'll be 10 years in July, which is pretty crazy. But I'm a college football reporter. I've been in this role since kind of the start of the 2015 season. Roam around a little bit, a lot of Florida, some Florida State, a little bit of Miami. Might do more USF this coming season as well. Just kind of, if there's an important story or an interesting story involving state college football, I want to be right there in the middle of it, whether that's a team doing really well, a team firing a coach, whatever. That's kind of where I want to be.
Well, I just want to, we're going to spend this next hour talking nothing about except Florida State football, if you don't mind, Matt, if it's okay with you guys. No?
They are for sure. They are a very interesting program.
Interesting. I'll give you that. But we're not going to do that. I'll do that off the air with you one day. You can give me the lowdown. I will say this about Matt Baker. Matt Baker prepared me for the Willie Taggart years. I just want to give you props there. You did a good job. You warned me about the Willie Taggart years, and we'll see what happens with Coach Norvell. But anyway, people are here to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Real quick, now something that we've already something we haven't mentioned, but it's already all over inside of the Pewter Report chat right now. A big one, of course, is Antonio Brown is back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, signs a 1-year deal with another year option on it. Just real quick, Matt, just give me your general thoughts on Antonio Brown coming back. Did you think he was going to come back? Because I think a lot of us in the media, I was one that was kind of thinking, you know what, they don't need this guy. And do they want to go through the potential aggravation of having him back on the roster for the production when you have guys like Scotty Miller and you have guys like Tyler Johnson and some of the younger guys that may be able to fill that role. But just your quick general thoughts on Antonio Brown coming back, and then we'll get into the college thing.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of at this point, they know who he is, right? They know the good, the bad, the ugly. They've had him in the locker room for a while. They know what kind of a teammate he is, what kind of a person he is. So if they were going to be scared off by anything, they already would have seen it. So I wasn't particularly surprised. I thought, when the civil suit got settled, I kind of figured the next step would be the Bucs signing him and keeping him on. But yeah, I could have seen the other side as well. And there's some really good receivers and kind of players in that that potentially at the 32 pick overall that the Bucs could have been interested in as well. But presumably Antonio Brown at least kind of limits that option, closes that door at least a little bit.
Yeah, he does. And again, he does make him a more talented football team. I think even as most hardened critics would say, he's still a productive football player. He certainly helped the team. I was actually earlier today, just had the Super Bowl on. I like to watch the TV broadcast. I was there, so I like to hear the commentary. I love Tony Romo and can't stand Jim Nantz, but like Tony Romo, and I like to hear what he says as he predicts the plays, 3 plays ahead of time. By the way, I want to take Tony Romo to Vegas one day because the guy has a great knack of kind of knowing what's coming up in football games. But watching the game, and I just recently, just a few minutes before I came in here, he caught the touchdown pass to extend the Buccaneers lead. So, he's certainly a talented football player. My general thoughts was he's still a volcano.
Yeah.
Volcanoes don't just necessarily go away after they erupt one time. They tend to just kind of lay dormant until the next time. Now, people in Italy, I guess it is, are still waiting on Mount Vesuvius to erupt again, or wherever that is. And they've been waiting for, 2,000 years or however long it's been. But eventually it's going to. Scientists tell us that. In my mind, Dr. Mark, the scientist, says Antonio Brown is going to erupt again at some point. You just hope it isn't during his tenure or in the middle of a season, and it could happen and disrupt his football team. Hopefully Tom Brady can kind of keep that from happening, but we'll see. It worked out last year. I hope it does work out for the Buccaneers again this year.
Yeah, you're certainly right there. With the saying, the leopard doesn't change the spots, right? So
right.
At a certain point, this is kind of who he is. But again, the Bucs have had the opportunity to see who he is and get their own gauge on it, and that's the decision they made. I don't know that I would have made it, but again, the potential is there where he can be a very, very good receiver in this league still. We saw that last year, that he was productive, and maybe bringing him back just opens up more possibilities in terms of what they need with the draft and what they need going forward. So, we'll see how it works. I don't have a good read on it. We'll see.
We'll see. That's all you can do. And by the way, thanks for using the leopard doesn't change his spots instead of the ginger doesn't lose his freckles. I used to hear that all the time. Actually, I've never heard that. I just made that up. So anyway, all right. I'm just reading some of the comments here from people who can't stand me. That's okay, not a problem. Now, Matt, we're gonna get into the this college realm of things. There's a particular guy at the University of Florida that you watched, and could be of some interest to the Buccaneers. We're going to talk about him, the Miami kids, some Florida kids. Not a lot of USF kids. Sorry, Taylor Jenkins. But throughout the show, throughout the time that you're on with us, Matt, we're just going to play a quick game. It's not really a long game, and we don't even need any commentary. I'm just going to ask you a quick question. What is your favorite Matt? And the first one is Matt Dillon versus the actor Matt Dillon versus Sheriff Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke. Just who's your favorite?
Actor Matt Dillon. I love this. I love the idea of this game, by the way, because Matt's clearly run the world. There are so many Matts. There are at least like 2 other Matt B's in college football media. So I'm like number in the Matt B pecking order of 30 something in college football media. That tells you how many Matts there are.
There are a lot of Matts. When I had Cam Brate on, we played we actually had a round of 16 with Cam Brate of famous Cams, and by the time I got down to 16, there was not a lot of them, by the way. So, but there was plenty of Matts to choose from. All right, so you had and this isn't a round robin. We're just going to occasionally ask you. You're going to go with the actor Matt Dillon. Not a bad choice. Love The Outsiders, one of my favorite movies growing up. Anyway, speaking of Outsiders, not that that's a good transition or segue, Kyle Trask, the guy you watched at University of Florida the last 2 years. The Buccaneers are not going to take Kyle Trask at 32. That's our general consensus, our general feeling from the Pewter Report staff. Speaking to some people and getting vibes and things like that, it doesn't appear that that's going to happen. However, maybe he's there in the second round. Reports have come out that Trask is one of those guys that is he the 6th quarterback, the 7th, the 8th, which one to come off of the board? And if that's the case, if he's 6, 7, or 8, it's going to be a day 2 guy. And Buccaneers maybe could have some interest at that point. But you have seen Kyle Trask, and when I wrote the story back in January, Matt, you were the first person I called because I knew you had firsthand information on the type of guy he was. And in the column, I wrote the Buccaneers should consider drafting Kyle Trask. You actually didn't think that was a smart move at that point. Has anything changed in your mind? And tell us your thoughts on Kyle Trask, why he would be, what was some of his good traits that would fit with the Buccaneers and some traits that maybe don't fit with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of give you the pros and cons here first. And Rick Stroud and I had talked about it quite a bit on the Tampa Bay Times podcast, and I wrote something the other day on TampaBay.com about just why it would make sense. So here's the arguments for him. If you look, the Bucs have a quarterback. His name is Tom Brady. He's pretty good, is what I understand. They don't need somebody who can start right away. Yeah, decent. But they might want somebody who can learn for a year or two, be the backup, be good in that backup role. If something happens to Brady, he gets hurt, can kind of go in immediately and play quickly and play at a high level on no notice because he's been taking all the notes while holding the football. That's Kyle Trask. That's what he did in high school. He was a backup at Manville High in Texas to De'Ara King, who's a fantastic player at the University of Miami right now. That's what he did in his first couple years in college, backing up, I think it was 2 or 3 different guys in early on, and then Felipe Franks until Franks got hurt. And then once it was his opportunity, he went out and had a very good first season and a historic, arguably one of the best seasons in the history of Florida football this past year, and finished 4th in the Heisman. So he's a guy who does all the right things behind the scenes to prepare himself, even if he's not the guy. He's shown he has no ego. He's shown he can learn like that. He's shown that he's capable. When his time was called, he played at a very high level. In high school, too, I think it was 16 touchdowns, no interceptions in his limited duty there. So the cons on him, I think, are this. I guess one other pro, very accurate, very nice touch on his ball. I think usually makes good decisions. But Mel Kiper used the word limited to describe Kyle Trask's physical skills, and I think that's probably a fair word. His arm is fine, but it's not great. You watch the way his balls travel through the air. It doesn't have a lot of zip on it, and certainly not all the time. There's a wobble to it. It's pillowy is kind of the word I've heard somebody use to describe it. Leisurely. Look, this ball will get there when it gets there. Don't worry about it. And I think that's pretty fair. I think his mobility is the other big question that he certainly tried to prove wrong at his pro day. he moves well enough in the pocket. I don't think that's the issue. But once he gets outside, he's not the most mobile runner. I think it was like 54 rushing yards over his career with the Gators. That he's not going to beat you with his legs. He can get you a sneak. He can score a 2-yard touchdown, that sort of thing. But he's not going to go out and break the game with his legs. So those are kind of the pros and cons. Maybe in the second round or third round, the Bucs view him as that much of a value. And the Bucs are in a fantastic position right now, right? Where they really can pick the best players available as they see it. They don't have a ton of obvious needs. They're choosing between a guy they think can develop into a starter in a couple years versus a guy that's going to be a backup linebacker or whatever it is. There's a lot of value in that position. And there's also something to the idea of regularly drafting a quarterback because you never know which one is going to hit because the draft is just such a crapshoot. Would I pick him in the first round? No, I would not. I would be surprised if somebody reached up there and did. Second or third, that's when it starts to get intriguing and where it might be.
I guess you have to look at it as a value proposition too. I mean, you're not going. Kyle Trask is not going to play for the Buccaneers this year, most likely next year. So that's 2 years. So do you draft a guy that is never going to see the field in the next couple of years when you can draft somebody that potentially could see the field this year, probably in a limited role because the Buccaneers have brought back all of their starters, but you don't know how injuries happen. But I mean, you certainly want your first round or your second round or your third round draft picks this year to be important players for you in 2022 and beyond. And you just don't know that with Trask. Now, my pros to it, a lot of the same ones you have. He's a winner. He's a smart kid. He's a tough kid. It seems like his teammates like the guy a lot. You're right. His balls don't, they're not zipping. You don't hear the whistle of the football. I remember, I think it was, Scott Reynolds and I a few years ago at the East-West Shrine game in St. Petersburg. We were just standing on the sideline back before, back when we could do those kind of things. And I think it was, it wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo. It was Derek Carr was actually there, I believe, in that game. And then he ended up, it was one of those two guys. But I just remember you could literally hear the whistle as the ball left his hand. It was just because he had such velocity on the ball. And that's not what you're going to get from Kyle Trask. By the way, you said pillowy. I've been described as pillowy for a number of years. I'm not going to prove to you why by removing my shirt, but that's a pretty good description of his footballs as well. So second round, maybe. I think I don't know that, I still think a team's gonna be intrigued by some of those pros that you talked about and probably draft him ahead of the Buccaneers in the second round if the Buccaneers have that interest in him. We do know that the Buccaneers do like Kyle Trask. They think highly of him and think he could be an NFL quarterback one day. He's not a day one type starter, most likely, as some of these other guys are. But truly, is any quarterback really a day one starter? Now, you saw Justin Herbert come in last year and do a great job, and Joe Burrow was doing fine, except he was on a terrible football team. Is anybody really a day one starter coming out of college? Probably, Trevor Lawrence. We'll see. I think, and I didn't write that down. I got to get your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence, and let's just go into that. No, let's keep going Buccaneer stuff. We're going to get into the Trevor. I want to ask you about Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer.
I've got one more thing on Trask, if that's okay.
Sure.
I think here's how I would sum him up. Look, there was the reason he was a backup in high school and college, and it was that his physical tools. He's got size, but he's just not oozing with tools like some of the other guys. But here's how I would describe this game. There was a play, his first start. It was home against Tennessee. Felipe Franks had that awful ankle injury the week before. Comes back to Tennessee. I think it was his first pass of the game. It was a deep ball over the middle to his third receiver, which was Trayvon Grimes. It was a very nice play. I remember thinking in the press box, oh, that's pretty nice. And then talking to people afterwards, I realized that it was the third read on the play. So here's what happened. Felipe Franks, if he had made that throw, it would have been a touchdown because Kyle Trask underthrew it a little bit.
Right.
But the difference between Franks and Trask is that Trask had the patience and the thought to look 1, 2, 3 and get it to the third. He just didn't have the arm strength or didn't make a strong enough throw at that point to lead his receiver enough where instead of a 40-yard pass or whatever it was, it's a touchdown. That's the difference between Trask and Franks and some of the other guys in the draft. Trask made the right decision. He just didn't have the tools to make it to a very nice play into a great play.
I see. Well, that's a great point. That's a great thing you pointed out, a specific play. Um, a guy that has been kind of rocketing up draft boards a little bit over the last few weeks, and a guy that I know a lot of Buccaneer fans have mentioned even in our chat right now today, is Texas A&M quarterback Kellen Mond, coached by one of my favorite coaches of all time, of course, Jimbo Fisher.
Number one.
Number one. Well, no, he's down the list behind Bobby. And anyway, yeah. So Jimbo has Kellen Mond. This is a guy that's gotten better every year, right? The last 3 seasons, you look at his numbers, his completion percentage goes up, his interceptions go down. I've watched him play a lot because I do watch Texas A&M when they're on, because I want to see how Jimbo Fisher does. I'm not going to say I'm always cheering for him. Sometimes I cheer for him to lose. I've got that love-hate relationship with Jimbo, of course. But I saw a lot of Kellen Mond. And A&M was on, the SEC's on anytime you want to watch their games, pretty much. So, your thoughts on Mond? Again, I know you didn't cover him specifically, but you've seen him play, and his projections into the NFL, some of his strengths and some of his weaknesses as well.
Yeah, he's definitely more mobile than Kyle Trask. I think he's again fairly toolsy. I think he's got a better arm than Trask. But what's interesting here though is Jimbo Fisher quarterbacks, and that's probably something we can probably talk about. He introduced quite a few of them over the years. Some of them were big names. Jamarcus Russell at LSU, Jameis Winston at Florida State, Christian Ponder at Florida State, EJ Manuel for Florida State. All those guys were first-round picks. How they do in the pros?
It's still to be determined by Christian Ponder. He could still come back and make his name in the NFL one day. Yeah. No, I get where you're going. I mean, if I'm a college high school kid, I'm going to go play for Jimbo Fisher because I'm going to get drafted in the first round or the second. I'm going to be a pro-ready quarterback. Now, again, Jimbo can't go make the throws for him once they get the NFL, and maybe they don't get as good a coaching as he got at Florida State or at Texas A&M, or even as Jamarcus Russell got at LSU. But yeah, no, I see where you're going with this. Our team's going to be leery of drafting a Jimbo Fisher quarterback, but I personally think that's a load of crap. I mean, Jimbo can teach him, but he can only, he can only do so much, right? You could say that technically about Florida quarterbacks. I mean, the Florida's had Heisman Trophy winners and things like that. And, I hate when people say don't draft a blank school quarterback because they never pan out. Well, again, how many quarterbacks from some small schools that went on to be great quarterbacks? I mean, Aaron Rodgers, right? He didn't come from the Alabamas and the Tennessees and the things of that world, yet he's been a great quarterback. It doesn't have to be, a quarterback U type school. And I don't know that there is what's the best quarterback U school out there? I mean, I'd have to do some research on that, but I think it's pretty spread. I don't think you can pinpoint and pigeonhole a particular school as a bad pro quarterback school versus a good pro quarterback school. It's about the athlete, the coaching they have around them, and the talent they have once they get to the NFL. Because most of these guys are pretty good when they get to the league, but there's a lot of intangibles, or not intangible isn't the right word, a lot of, mitigating factors that go into having success as a quarterback in the NFL. And I'm not going to pin it on just a school.
Yeah, I think Miami would be one of the top ones with Kosar and Kelly and those guys. Kind of, we're going back a bit. It's funny you mentioned the Gators and their quarterback. I laughed. We had something on TampaBay.com the other day. I ranked the kind of in the modern era, the top Gators quarterbacks when they were drafted, and then kind of based on their pro careers. Rex Grossman was number 1. That tells you something.
Didn't Rex Grossman split time on the field at Florida? I mean, was he part of that?
Yeah, they've
two-headed monster.
They've had so many good quarterbacks over the years at the college level. Again, right. Rex and Tebow and Matthews, and go back to Spurrier. But at the NFL, they have not really panned out. And I'm with you. I think it's kind of silly. You judge the player, not the program, and not the uniform. But I think it's important to view Jimbo in that lens, and the quarterbacks as well, because I wonder, his offense. One of the selling points with Jameis to the Bucs, right, was how complicated and how pro style Jimbo's offense was. And after a handful of them haven't panned out at the next level. I wonder how much that pro style offense helps, or how much it kind of complicates their thought process. I just think that's a fair question to ask, and it's relevant now with Kellen Mond too. Yeah, I think he's in that. I would probably put him as the 6th quarterback outside of that top 5. I think he would probably be next. I think I like him over Davis Mills from Stanford, and probably over Trask.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't love him either.
Right. All right. Let's talk about again. Not that the Buccaneers have any chance at all, but just brief thoughts. How great? I don't even want to. I take that back. Let me rewind. How good is Kyle Pitts going to be in the NFL? I don't ever want to call anybody great, but he's going to be really, really good, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to be awesome. You look at the way the tight end has evolved from the big guys who would go out and run a short out or something and get an 8-yard catch, but mostly they were blockers. And you compare that to what Kyle Pitts is, where he's an adequate blocker, not a great blocker, but he's adequate. But 6'5", 245, runs a 4.4, 5.40, something like that. The longest or largest wingspan of any tight end of the kind of modern draft era. Can jump out of the gym. All those tools, the way he can move from traditional tight end, flex them out, that sort of thing. He's going to be a matchup nightmare in the NFL. Where to bring this to the Bucs, I do not want to be the Bucs having to scheme against him if he goes to Atlanta at number 4.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not a matchup you can win very often. He's going to be a Travis Kelce, George Kittle-like player. I think he's got a higher ceiling than both of them.
You know what? I think you're absolutely right. I think he's a better athlete than both of those guys, and he's like you say, the wingspan, the frame, his ability to go up and catch a tough ball, like some of the great guys that can go up and make the incredible highlight reel catch. Occasionally he'll let one bounce off his hands on an easy one, but I just love his athleticism. I love I love everything about him. And people say, well, he's not a great blocker. Look, you're not drafting Kyle Pitts to be blocking the guy. There's plenty of guys you can go out there and draft, right? If you need somebody to block, draft another offensive lineman if you want to. Just you don't want to waste Kyle Pitts' talent by having him as a blocker. So that's something I wanted to ask you about. Again, Buccaneers have no shot at this guy. A guy that they may have an opportunity. I don't think they will. I don't know if they have interest in this guy. We haven't heard a whole lot about it. We know that the Buccaneers were at Florida's Pro Day, but a guy like Kadarius Toney, where do you see him fitting in the NFL? And do you have a comp player to him? I mean, what type of player can he be? Is he a gadget player? Is he going to be a pure receiver? Is he going to be a third down back? I mean, where do you see Kadarius Toney and the success he might have in the NFL?
Well, the obvious comp was Percy Harvin, just because at college with the Gators, he was the best thing they've had to kind of move him around, just get him the ball they've had since Percy Harvin. What's interesting to me about Kadarius Toney is his evolution, right? He was joined at Florida. He started taking reps at quarterback because they thought maybe he could do it. He's got a great arm. Like, he might have had the strongest arm among the whole Gators team last year.
Didn't even know that. Wow.
Oh yeah, he's a great quarterback. He'll tell you he can throw it 60 yards or something now. I don't know if that's accurate. The 2018, the Dan Mullen Bowl in Starkville, when Mullen's Gators went back to play his old team, he had the go-ahead touchdown pass on a trick play. That gives him a little bit of versatility. You're not going to play that quarterback a lot, but he can do it. I think just with his ability, again, we talked about with Kyle Pitts moving around, creating good matchups. He's a guy that can do that as well. He's not quite Tyreek Hill because he's not that fast. Nobody is. But he's a guy who you can run. You can put up at running back. You can put him in the slot. You can move him at receiver. And I guess the thing that most impressed me about him this year is he went from, in 2018 and 2019, Mullen would often say that he's a guy you need to get the ball, but you don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be exciting. It could be really good or really bad. It's going to be one or the other. But they would do things to get him the ball: the jet sweeps, the flips, the short passes. But in 2020, he became more of a well-rounded receiver. It wasn't a thing where, I'm Kyle Trask. I have to make sure he gets the ball. I have to feed it to him. No, it would happen in the natural flow of the offense as he went from a great athlete to a more polished receiver. Now he's going to have steps to go in terms of refining things at the next level, of course, like anybody does. But that to me at least showed that there's a possibility that he can become a pure receiver and not just a gadget. So yeah, if he's there at 32, that I think the Bucs should absolutely take him, because it just adds one more weapon that can help kind of put you over the edge this year as you try and defend the Super Bowl.
I worry about a team you worried about the Falcons getting Kyle Pitts. I worry about a team like the Saints. Maybe imagine him on that fast turf up at the Superdome, and with Sean Payton's mind, the way he utilizes guys and his gadgets and things like that. I think he would be a tremendous fit up in New Orleans. And again, I would not want to be Todd Bowles trying to figure out how you're going to keep an eye on this guy while you're also trying to figure out what Sean Payton's going to do. I guess the advantage to that is, and I'm surprised no one said it yet here, Jameis Winston will be throwing the football, so that you'll be able to defend the Saints offense. But I don't know. Let's talk about that real quick. Again, people know your history with Jameis Winston, and no need to get into any of that now, unless you want to. But no, there's no need to get into that. Real quick though, before we do that, Matthew McConaughey or Matthew Broderick, which was your favorite?
McConaughey, hook 'em, right?
That's true. All right, we're going to go with McConaughey there. Now, going back to Jameis Winston in New Orleans, how do you think he's going to fit in there? Can he resurrect his career? Again, you watched him at Florida State. You saw probably every game that he played. You were there for the national championship game and in the 2013 season. You were there for the very first playoff game the following year when they lost to Oregon. I think that score was 59-58. It was a real close game, came down to the last second. Is that right, Matt? I can't.
It was actually 59-20, and Tom Jones was in the press box next to me. I think we were done writing in the third quarter.
Yeah, I was done watching. I didn't stop watching, but I was. I knew it was over at that point. But you've seen Jameis Winston play. You certainly saw him here. His 5 years in Tampa Bay. You saw the 5,000 yards. You also saw the 30 interceptions. And that's something that dates back to his last year at Florida State. His first year at Florida State, interceptions weren't really an issue. It came down to that second year when interceptions and turnovers became an issue. Can Jameis Winston revive his career under Sean Payton in New Orleans? Your thoughts on Jameis?
Can he? Yes, this is a bad answer. Can he? Yes. Will he? I don't know. It depends on him and how much the last couple of years have humbled him. And I do think there has been some progress. I mean, you look to the way things ended in Tampa with a check your sheet, right? And then you look at going from checking a sheet to him checking out the door and heading to New Orleans to be a backup. Yeah. If that humbled him enough, and I'm sure it did, I think he can change. And he's also going to have to just change the mindset, right? Because Jameis is an extremely confident guy. He always has been, and I think he probably always will be. But he's had to learn, or has to learn if he's going to succeed, that there's times you don't want to force a throw. There's times where an incompletion is the best thing. There's times where, maybe you can make that throw, but should you? And just the forcing things. That's what led to all, I think kind of what made him great or was helped make him great is also what led to his downfall. So I don't know if he can.
Absolutely.
I think it was interesting that the Saints didn't just give him the free reign. It's going to be a competition there, and we'll see whether he's able to what he's able to do with that. Because clearly he's talented. He has a great arm, and everything that we saw at Florida State that made him a Heisman winner and everything. It's just, can he make the right decisions? And I don't know yet.
All right. People are complaining. We're talking about Jameis Winston.
All right.
Yeah, isn't that surprising? Again, I'm not talking about Jameis Winston only because I'm a Florida State fan, because it doesn't matter now. But here's a guy that you covered Jameis Winston throughout his college career. You broke some major news about Jameis Winston, and he's going to be facing the Buccaneers most likely twice next season. So I think it is a little relative, regardless of what Charles Abrams had to say, who said, let's put Charles as how droll Jameis Winston talk. Okay, we'll stop, Charlie. No more Jameis Winston talk. Well, we might bring him up a little bit later. Just kidding. Let's go back to some draft talk. I don't know how long you can hang out with us. We don't go past an hour here. We're already at 34 minutes, man. If you can hang out for another 20 minutes, that would be great.
We're good.
We're good. Another 20. All right.
My 4-year-old's not banging on the door yet, so we're all right.
He's not 4. Quit saying that. The kid was just born like a month ago. I remember seeing when he was born. How in the world is he 4 years old, man?
He's forward. You can't see the white piece of paper up there. During this season, I'm an AP top 25 voter. But at one point this year, I was doing my ballot on the kitchen table, and he wanted to do it too. So he sat next to Daddy, and he did his top 25. With, Wisconsin was number 1 that week, by the way. Bama 2, Northwestern 3.
The kid's a natural, and he's got a great dad, a great writer, and a great college football mind to help him out there. Some Miami kids. Again, now there's more of a possibility here. We know Kyle Trask and Pitts and those guys aren't, but the Buccaneers may have a choice of 3 Miami defensive players with that number 32 pick. You've got Rousseau, of course, and Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche. Those 3 guys, again, you've seen your fair share of those guys in person and obviously on television as well. Your general thoughts on those 3, and which one do you think, if he were to be available, would be the better fit for the Buccaneers?
Quincy Roche is the clear number 3 in that group. He was very productive in college, both at Miami this past year, and also he was the AAC Defensive Player of the Year at Temple. He's just not as toolsy as the others. He's not as quick, not as explosive, not as big. So yeah, he would make sense as a potential mid-round guy, something like that. But he's not in the Rousseau Phillips tier. To me, Greg Rousseau and Jalen Phillips are interesting for just the polar opposite reasons. Greg Rousseau was there's 1 year of film on him, right? And in 2018, he played sparingly. He redshirted. 2019 has 15 and a half sacks, second only to Chase Young. And in 2020, he opted out. Jalen Phillips is kind of just the flip side of that, where he didn't do a lot early on. He was number 1 recruit in the country, went to UCLA, had injury issues, flamed out, resurfaces at Miami, and he has 1 fantastic 2020 season. So it's just interesting that on one hand, we're looking at a guy who has 1 year of film, but it's old because of what happened, because he opted out. The other one is one guy, very talented, had 1 very good year, but it was this past year. So a little bit more recent there. I think of the 2, I would prefer Jalen Phillips. I think he's a little bit. You just look at him; he's long, he's explosive, he's got power. It seems like every time I would watch a Miami game this year, maybe with the exception of like the North Carolina debacle and Clemson as well, you look up and he's doing something. He wasn't necessarily getting a tackle for a loss, but he was, pushing the tackle. He was making his presence felt in a way that. Rousseau had a fantastic year as well in 2019, but I'm just a little less convinced on it, just because it was a bit ago and he had the 1 breakout year. And Jalen Phillips is a guy that college football people have known about for a long time because of his talent potential as, again, number 1 recruit in the country in 2017.
Injury concerns with Rousseau. With Phillips, I guess is the biggest question mark. But if I'm the Buccaneers and he's there at 32, I think it would be a great pick. Again, you're not risking the overall number 10 pick or top 5 pick on a guy. You're risking number 32. And again, you don't ever want to blow a first-round draft pick or make a mistake with a guy that plays a couple years or has some injury issues or is the next Mitch Unrein who has 1 training camp, a concussion, and then is never heard from again. You want that guy, whether he's the number 1 overall pick or the number 32 pick. You need number 1 picks to succeed and be successful for your team. But I mean, to me, if he checked out up in Indy, if he checked out with the NFL doctors and things like that, and the Buccaneers feel comfortable with it, I think that would be a hell of a pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because they're not getting younger on that defensive line or that outside linebacker position, and they need guys who can get to the quarterback. And you're right, he's a tremendous athlete, a tremendous talent. So that would be my guy. Certainly, out of those 3, he would be the one that I would like the most.
He just got so much upside. Rousseau does too. I think Rousseau's riskier because it is the 1 year as a sophomore, and he just blew up. His frame blew up. Yeah. Whereas Jones had at least flashes where you could project this is what this guy is going to be. And pass rushing is an absolute premium in the NFL.
Sure.
The most important guys are your quarterbacks, the guys who catch the passes, the guys who protect them on the outside, and the guys who can get after the quarterback. So he plays one of the premium positions. And the high upside there, and there's a lot of value. It might not work, but I think that's one of those risks worth taking for sure.
Yeah. Friday Night Lights quarterback, star of NBC series Friday Night Lights, Matt Saracen or Matthew Modine from the 80s, the actor.
Matt Saracen. I love Saracen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was Is that not one of the best TV shows ever? Friday Night Lights was great. If anybody out there has not seen that show, just watch it. I coached high school football for about 6 years at Plant City. Go Raiders. It's very, very the most accurate, in my opinion, of any football genre movie, NFL or high school or college or whatever. I mean, I've seen all the NFL movies in any given Sundays and the high school movies and things like that. But it's such a great series, and love Matt Saracen, even though he tended
that was one of our pandemic binges in the early stage. I think the second show we were like, all right, let's binge this.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, and anyway, terrific show. So you're going with Saracen there. We've only got a few more of these to go. I think people are probably saying, "Shut up, Cook. Let's talk more football, real life stuff." We will now, because we're going to switch gears to a team up in Tallahassee. Again, people ask me, I get asked probably 3 or 4 times a week, which Florida State guy would you like to see the Buccaneers draft? I say none, and I say that only because I don't know how to judge any of these guys. I just think the coaching has been awful since Jimbo left. Maybe even that last year that Jimbo was there. And there were some questions. I was never a Rick Trickett fan on the offensive line when Jimbo was there. But you can't have 10 all-star coaches, right? Even though the Buccaneers staff is pretty damn good right now. But you see what I'm saying? So it's hard for me to evaluate or judge anything that has come out of Tallahassee in the last few years. There have been a couple mocks that have Asante Samuel Jr. as a number 32 pick, and he'll probably be there at that point for the Buccaneers. If they decided to go cornerback, I don't know that they do, but if they decided to, he may be there. Your thoughts on any of the Florida State guys? I guess you got Janoris Robinson, Scary Terry, the receiver, who's one of our best bets as a day 2 or 3 guy, or a day 3 guy. But your thoughts mainly on Asante Jr. or Samuels Jr. Certainly comes from a great pedigree, but is that enough to get him, to have success in the NFL? In other words.
Yeah, he had a very he had a fine career. I think he had more passes defense to the breakups and interceptions than he did games played, which is a nice stat. Only the third Knoll since 2000 to have at least 2 fumble recoveries and 3 interceptions in the same year, which he did this past year as an all ACC player. The concern I have on him is size. I think he's listed at 5'10", 180 is what he is. So he's not, doesn't have great length. He's not. He's just undersized, and I think at the cornerback position, with the way that things have evolved there, and the way that the passing game has evolved, that's a concern I would have. I would look at him at number 32, but I think the Bucs probably have bigger needs, and just I don't know if that's the one that makes sense. Looking elsewhere at Florida State, you mentioned Scary Terry, Tamorian Terry. I think he's a very interesting prospect because, look, all he did was catch long touchdowns, which is a fantastic skill to have if you can do it consistently. His route was pretty much run straight, run that way, and then go up and catch it. So I think he's a very intriguing prospect. Marvin Wilson is the guy that I'm probably most interested in. Because if you had told me a year ago, first of all, I didn't expect him to come back for this past season.
I don't think anybody did.
Because he was a potential first-round guy. He was a 5-star recruit out of Texas, top D tackle in the country that year. Is kind of part of Jimbo's last recruiting class. Had flashes of success at Florida State, wasn't necessarily consistent, had some injury issues, and this past year just didn't look explosive on a not good team. You can't blame him for everything that went on. And then opted out, or kind of shut down, I guess I should say, because of a knee injury. I think he's a guy who has a lot of upside, but it's kind of crazy to me that he's now we're talking about him as a day 3 prospect. I would not have expected that a year or 2 ago. So he's a guy that I think would be interesting. Just I'm curious to see where he lands and where he ends up.
Yeah,
I D tackle, as was Jason Light said the other day. Not a lot of great D tackles, interior linemen.
No, it's a weak class, and in Ty T, one of our readers commented Marvin Wilson in the 4th or 5th. I wouldn't hate. I don't know that he gets to 4th or 5th. I'm with you. I was shocked that he came back. I think in hindsight he would have left last year because he was a 1st-round draft pick. He probably was mid to late 1st-round guy. That's the grades that we saw early on before he made the decision to come back, and just was not a good year. I agree with you with when he was on the field. We don't know if he was bothered by some other injuries or things like that, or distracted by, worried about getting hurt. I don't know what the problem was, but he was not the same Wilson that we saw the previous couple years, unfortunately for Florida State. But no, I think third round guy, I would not even hesitate to draft him there. I think particularly in a class that just isn't very deep and very good at the defensive tackle position. He's a big, stout man who, he's not a guy that's going to get lateral very good, but he's very strong. He plugs the middle and he can overpower centers and guards. When he wants to. Again, I don't know. I wish I knew more about it, but it's hard to evaluate those guys. Again, I think the coaching has been very suspect up in Tallahassee the last few years, so hard to say. But we'll see. Maybe a late third round, if when the Buccaneers are on the clock at that point, wouldn't have a problem with that at all. So there we go. We've kind of ran through the state schools. That's not true. There's UCF out there, and Taylor Jenkins, one of our beat writers here, he's a huge UCF fan. There's a USF. I can't remember, Matt. Oh yeah, USF. So he hates UCF. Any USF or UCF guys just off the top of your head that you see as potential fits here in Tampa, or just general draftable guys in the NFL? I know that UCF has some guys that'll definitely be drafted, but just your general thoughts on any of those that maybe that you remember seeing or stood out to you at all.
Yeah, I mean, Richie Grant from UCF, the DB there is I don't know that he's a first round guy, but he's probably a second round guy, one of the better kind of safety prospects in this draft. So again, I don't know that he makes sense for the Bucs necessarily, but he's a name at least to know. The Bulls' top prospect is KJ Sales, who's a DB. I don't know that he'll get drafted. I think he's probably an undrafted, priority free agent type guy. He can be a returner as well. I don't talk a lot about the players as people a lot, just because most of these players, I'm not going to pretend to know them as human beings. I'm just not going to go there. But KJ is as impressive a 21, 22-year-old, whatever he is, as you're going to be. I've spoken to him a couple times, just talking to him at his pro day the other day. He is an impressive guy. He is put together. He's mature. He has it figured out. Does that mean he's going to be a great player in the NFL? No, of course not. It's about his physical tools and everything else. But I do think it's worth mentioning that he is an impressive guy that if he gets, wherever chance he gets, he's not going to blow up because he did something stupid. And I just do think it's
and teams need guys that are depth guys. I mean, we saw USF Bull bounce around here in Tampa Bay the last couple of years, and Mazzy Wilkins and things like that. And we don't know, how these guys are going to pan out. You need special teams guys. You need those guys. You need insurance guys, Matt. And you know what? Yep. I bring up insurance. You know why I bring up insurance, Matt? I bring up insurance because Briar Greaves is one of our sponsors here. And Briar Greaves has been in business for over 30 years in the Tampa Bay area, and they're huge Buccaneer fans, Matt. They handle every line of insurance. In fact, Matt, I'm going to send you Briar's information and I'm sure the wife handles this because she's much smarter than you with finances and things like that. But when it's time to renew the homeowner's insurance, when it's time to renew the automobile insurance, when it's time to up your life insurance, when you're getting on that flight to go to Montana or wherever you might be going on a cold December evening to watch a college football game, she needs to bump up that life insurance. But she can do that by going to briargreaves.com or calling them at 813-876-4166. She can talk to Sam. She can talk to Briar. She can talk to anybody in the office. And the worst case scenario is, Matt, they'll say, you know what, Mrs. Matt, we can't help you out. You got a good policy where you're at right now. Stay where you are. But she may be able to save you guys some money. And I think everybody listening right now should contact Briar Greaves as soon as this podcast is over, of course. Write down the number, 813-876-4166. Contact Briar Greaves for all of your insurance needs. There is no one listening right now that doesn't have some sort of insurance need, and Briar Greaves can handle that for you. So, Matt, make sure to give him a shout at some point. And even if you're listening and you don't, for whatever reason, you're happy with what you got, just give him a call. Just tell them what you got right now. Let them compare prices. It doesn't cost you a single thing in the world. Worst case scenario, you spend 15 minutes on the phone and you talk a little bit of Buccaneer football with a couple of big Bucs fans in Sam or Briar Greaves. BriarGreavesInsurance.com. All right, Matt. Matt Lauer or Matt LeBlanc? This is a tough one. Just kidding. It should not be very tough. Okay, good. If you would have went the other way on that, we may have to just disconnect you on the call there. Nope. We got a couple other Matts we're going to get into before it's over. But anyway, all right, we've kind of talked draft. We've talked the Buccaneers. Let me ask you this. if you were, which you're not because you're a journalist and you have integrity and you're balanced and you're fair, but let's just put on a Buccaneer fan hat for a minute. Put one on. Pretend you're putting one on there. Just okay. That's a nice one. Is that the new draft hat? I like it. Listen.
Yeah, of course.
If you're a Buccaneer fan and you see this football team, everybody they brought back, Tom Brady back at quarterback, the coaching staff intact, there's no question they are going to be the favorites to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl and probably the favorites to win a Super Bowl. Does that make you nervous? Is it the pressure? I mean, you can go back to the 2003 team that was 7-9 after a Super Bowl win. I mean, the Super Bowl hangover effect, all of those things. I mean, teams don't win. Here's a stat that I brought up the other day. I think it was in my Monday mailbag. The last team to win back-to-back Super Bowls was the Tom Brady-led Patriots. But in his 20 years, he only won back-to-back Super Bowls one time. Right. It doesn't happen that often. And before that, you have to go back to the 90s, and I think it was the Broncos that won back-to-back Super Bowls. So it's not an easy thing to do. But if you're a Buccaneer fan, are you confident? Are you nervous? Are you taking a wait-and-see approach? How are you feeling as a Buccaneer fan? Because right now, everything is going too good. I'm one of those guys that sometimes feel like you're waiting on the other shoe to drop in my life. How concerned, how confident would you be if you're a Buccaneer fan for the 2021 Buccaneer season?
I would be cautiously optimistic. Your points there are all well taken. It has been a while since anybody has repeated. But let's dig into that. One of the reasons why is it's hard to keep the team together because you win a Super Bowl, then your free agent receiver, free agent tackle, whatever it is, their price goes up a little bit because hey, this guy just helped his team win a Super Bowl. I need him on my team. So that's not an issue here with Tampa Bay because again, they somehow got all 22 guys back. So I think that kind of crosses one concern off. I would be concerned about injury luck. It's not something you can quantify. Teams and players and everything don't like talking about it, but the injuries happen, and a lot of it is fluky, and a lot of it is luck versus unluck. I mean, you look at 2013 Florida State. Obviously, they were a great team. Every starter on that team got at least a cup of coffee in the NFL, but they had fantastic injury luck, and not everybody has that. So usually, if you're going to be really lucky one year, odds will catch up, and you'll hit the other time in the next year. So that's a concern that I would have. But honestly, if I were a Bucs fan, I'd just be enjoying it as much as possible because it's been a while. Who knows if it'll happen again? Maybe it will. Maybe it'll happen 3 more times, and Brady will 15, or who knows? Right. But I would just enjoy it while it's there because next season starts over, no one has any idea what's going to happen. And Mahomes isn't going away.
And look, I mean, Kansas City fans were excited. They drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year. I mean, they brought majority of their team back, and they finished 14-2 in the regular season. But they had injuries at the tackle position in that championship game, and that was to me the difference in the football game. Again, I was rewatching the Super Bowl today as I was doing some work, and the Buccaneers, the pass rush was just in Patrick Mahomes' face. I just feel like if he would have had a clean pocket, there's no telling how that game would have ended up. It certainly wouldn't have been 31-9. It would have been a much closer football game. I don't know who would have won. And I think as a Buccaneer fan, you just have to hope that you get back to the Super Bowl. Winning it is a whole different ball game because, like you say, you could have an injury in the championship game at a crucial position that could throw things off, as Kansas City saw. But I think getting back to the Super Bowl, I think they have a very good shot. But you're right. So many things go into it, so many intangibles, injuries, the ball bouncing the wrong way. I mean, a distraction off the field, all of those things could affect the team's ability to repeat. But I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. I mean, I'm going to pick them to go 16-0. I really am. I think I'm going to. And you know what, man? I was looking at the schedule. Now, we don't know who they're playing. We know who they're playing. We don't know the dates and the times and those kind of things. I don't know that there's a team that the Buccaneers won't be favored against this year. I mean, I can't off the top of my head, right? I mean, they're going to be favored against all of the NFC East teams that they face. They play Dallas, they play the Giants, they play Washington. Buffalo maybe, but that's a home game, so I feel that they're going to be favored in that. Now, again, you don't know. I'm saying before the season starts, I think they would be favored in every game. Again, if Tom Brady goes down with an injury week 1, then they're going to be underdogs the rest of the 15 games that they play, or 16 now because of the 17-game schedule. So all of those factors. But I think if this team stays relatively injury-free, I don't think there's any reason why they can't make it back to the Super Bowl. You worry about a Super Bowl hangover to a degree. You don't worry about it with a guy like Tom Brady as much because, again, Tom Brady elevates everybody around him. He knows what it takes to get back. He's not going to let these guys loaf, and they respect and they listen to Tom Brady. So having Tom Brady and Bruce Arians to a degree as well, who's not going to cut him any slack just because they won a Super Bowl. He's going to expect him to work just as hard. Same thing with Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is going to expect him to work harder than they did last year and be a better defense, and I think they can be. We're going to wrap you up in just a couple minutes. Real quick, Matt Stafford or Matt Damon? This is a tough one.
Matt Damon. I do like Matt Stafford. I mean, he's just born in Tampa and grew up in Dallas. I've got a lot of family in Dallas, so I like those ties, but Matt Damon.
All right, and the last one, Matt Ryan or Matt Gay?
Matt Ryan, Matty Ice. I like Matty Ice.
All right. Matt Matera or Matt Baker? I'm sorry, Matt Matera. I hate it because I was going to bring Matt in, but we went long. So we're not going to bring Matt Matera in, one of our great beat writers who does a terrific job. I promise you, Matt, next time I end up solo, you are the man with me. I appreciate you hanging. He's been kind of in the background, as a background guy waiting to jump in, but we're going to end this podcast in just a couple minutes. We're going to end it on, again, taking advantage of your vast college football knowledge, something that I'm interested in, not draft wise. Who's the best player you saw in college football last year? I don't mean who do you think was the guy that's going to be drafted the highest, but just the best individual football player that you were able to witness in person last year in your job covering college football for the Times.
You're making me think, but I'm going to, can I be lame and give you 2? Is that legal or no?
You know what? Because we've made you pick between 2 Matts this whole time, you're allowed to give 2 players as your answer. Yes, that's legal.
Okay. Look, I've got a list in my head of I've seen lots of really good players. I've been really fortunate, but there's a handful of special players, is what I call them. That they were so much better than everybody else. They're not special. They're special. And I saw 2 this year. Kyle Pitts, we talked about. Every single game, he did something that's like, holy cow. I remember watching the Ole Miss game, and he schooled an edge rusher, or like an outside linebacker, inside linebacker, safety, nickel, corner. He had catches against all those guys. Kyle Pitts is on that list, and Devontae Smith is the other one from Bama.
Yeah.
I don't care how small he is. I grew up in Indiana. I grew up a Colts fan. Marvin Harrison wasn't the biggest guy either. All he did was make a bunch of catches and have a sensational career. Devontae Smith is special. No, I watched. I was in the press box in Atlanta for the SEC title game. I thought in my head he was going to be my Heisman guy, but I told somebody I want to see him in person first. I just want to see him, just to be sure. Literally, it took 2 catches. He had one over the middle where he came up and high pointed and kept running. I turned to her and I said, all right, I'm convinced he's a guy.
Yeah.
And then when I covered the national title game against Ohio State, he had a sensational game in the first quarter. To me, those 2 are on that special list and the top 2 guys I saw this year.
Surprise you that Smith is now wide receiver 3 probably in this draft? Or?
Yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
I know Jalen Waddle is really, really good too. I get that. Jamar Chase is extremely toolsy with the size and the speed and all that stuff. Watch the film. Devontae Smith is unbelievable. I get the size, but I want him on my team. After I saw enough, I want him on my team.
Yeah. No, I'm really with you on that. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm being silly here, but I think, sometimes the measurables get in the way of what people see with their eyeballs and the production. Now, again, there's been a long list of guys that were extremely productive in college football that didn't pan out. Peter Warrick was one of the best football players I ever saw in college football,
Sure.
mediocre in the NFL. You know what I mean? Really surprising. If you would have told me that was the career he was going to have, I wouldn't have necessarily believed it. But I agree with you. I think Smith is a special, special guy. Whoever ends up with him is going to be a hell of a football team, is going to be very happy about that pick down the road. Now, lastly, before we get out of here, who's the best guy you've ever seen? Not this past year. I'm talking about, well, maybe it's one of those two guys, but best guy you've covered in person, that you've been able to witness and see firsthand during your career in journalism.
Ooh. I mean, Jameis is in the conversation. Dalvin Cook is in the conversation. It's probably between Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson. Lamar was so good. I think it's Lamar. Lamar was so good. I hate to bring this up to you, but I was at the game day game, week 3, 63-20. He was so good. I mean, you watch him on TV and he's quick, but in person he is another level. And the only guy I've seen that's in that conversation was Michael Vick. And I didn't see him in person. I just watched him on TV. Deshaun Watson was pretty darn special too. I saw him in obviously the national championship that Orange Crush played that won it in Tampa in January 2017 was fantastic. He was a darn good player. Gun to my head, off the top of my head, I think Lamar Jackson's the answer.
I can't. I hate to agree with you on that, but I'm gonna go ahead and just agree with you there. You brought up one other thing. I said we were done. Dalvin Cook. We saw his college career as production. A lot of people say you don't draft running backs in the first round. And I tend to agree to a degree, because you're only going to use them probably for 4 years, maybe 5, and then, recycle and start over at that position, the way the NFL is going these days. Your thoughts on running backs in the first round, first. And secondly, who's the best running back in this draft? I'm a huge Najee Harris guy. But there's a certain kid up in Clemson, some Clemson fans and plenty of NFL scouts that would disagree with me on that. Your thoughts on running backs in the first round and the best one in this class?
Well, running backs in the first round, I was pretty adamant and wrote something for the Tampa Bay Times at TampaBay.com about why the Bucs should draft Dalvin. Because, again, he was special. And who would they rather had the past couple years, O.J. Howard or Dalvin? I think it's pretty clear they would have rather had Dalvin. A lot of everybody else passed on him in the first round too, and I thought they were done. At a certain point, they were done. So to me, it has to be the right guy, and Dalvin was that. In terms of this year, I like Travis Etienne better. I like the flash of him. Najee Harris is really good. I mean, he was the best player on the field in the SEC championship game, where he ran well, he caught well, he was fantastic. Best player for Bama, at least, because Kyle Pitts was in that mix as well. But I think I like Travis Etienne and his flash a little bit more. He's really fast. His balance is off the charts. Like, that's not something I look for when I'm watching running backs a lot, but it is off the charts. And his former co-OC at Clemson, now the head coach at USF, Jeff Scott, compared him to Barry Sanders. I mean, that's a little lofty because Barry Sanders was obviously fantastic, but I think Travis Etienne is really, really good. And if I had to pick between the two, I would take Etienne. And honestly, I would not look away from either if I'm the Bucs, because again, it's going to be that best available player who's a guy that can help me now. I think either of those could be very strong weapons that could play immediately and help that team try to win another Lombardi.
Man, I could go on for another hour. I'm not going to do that. I appreciate your time, my friend, and hopefully we can have you back in the future on the podcast. We would certainly appreciate it. You've given us a lot to think about, and love your insight on things and your fairness, and you do good work for the Tampa Bay Times. So thanks a lot, Matt. We certainly appreciate it, bud. Thanks, man. We'll catch up with you later down the road. Thank you. All right. We're about done with the podcast. A couple things I want to remind you about. The PewterReport.com draft show, sponsored by Edmondson Electric, AC and Securities, begins tomorrow night, Thursday night, April 29th at 7 p.m. Scott and John will be live an hour before the draft starts discussing things. And then on Friday, we'll be back again a little ahead of time, 6 p.m. That's Friday, April 30th. And then on Saturday, another all-day marathon of Scott and John and some of the other guys too. We'll have some guests probably on Saturday, but May 1st, 11 a.m. Again, make sure you're tuned in. Go to Pewter Report TV on YouTube, subscribe. We want you to watch it, though, actually on pewterreport.com. I mean, you can go to YouTube if you want to, but we want you to go to the website and watch it. We expect to have a good time, as we always have. I was joking with Scott earlier. I went back and watched some of our old draft shows when we first started 4 or 5 years ago with Trevor. And again, at the time, they were groundbreaking, right? No media outlet was doing live broadcasts throughout the entire 3 days of the draft. But they're pretty primitive compared to the technology and the way things have changed. I think this show, I know this show is going to be, this weekend's going to be the best one that we've ever done, certainly with Scott's knowledge and also with John's knowledge as well. Hang on, let me click this comment off here so you can see the full screen. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, well, I'm probably going to get yelled at. Scott told me how, but I can't find the comment to remove it. So anyway, sorry. I know it's annoying to look. There it goes. It's gone. Somebody did that for me. Probably Matt Matera, who's in the background. I hope so. Anyway, but make sure to check out the draft show, and make sure if you have any needs in terms of your electric issues, AC, or security, that you contact Kevin and Edmondson Electric. And again, even if you don't have any needs, I appreciate it if you give them a call, send them an email, thank them for sponsoring the draft show. It's going to be again this weekend, all 3 days of the draft, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We didn't really have a chance to talk about AB being back. We talked about it briefly with Matt at the very beginning. Matt Matera and I were going to discuss it a little bit more, but at this point, since it happened this morning, everybody kind of knows about it. It is what it is. He's back again, and this team just gets better and better. And I don't think Buck fans are going to complain that a talented football player is going to be back with the Buccaneers. And anyway, well, now I'm double. Now I definitely don't know how to fix this. Hang on. Wait. Nope, that didn't work. Oh, well. Well, I'm going to sign off as you're probably confused about why there's 2 panels of me split up like that. Man, I got to get better at this. But anyway, or Scott John's never going to let me host it again. But for our good friends at Briar Greaves, for our good friends at Celsius, of course, don't forget the Celsius giveaway. This is huge. 10 people are going to win a 1-month supply, and 1 person is actually going to win an autographed Scotty Miller football. The way that you do that is you subscribe to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Then you follow Celsius Official on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You follow Scotty Miller at MillerTime, 3_10 on Twitter or Instagram. Then what you do is you screenshot all of these things that you do, and then you submit the entry to Celsius.com/pewter, and they will draw a winner out. You have until May 1st to do this. That is the deadline to get your information in. You can win an autograph. Scotty, you see that picture of Scotty Miller signing the ball? That is the one that you're going to get. That exact football, a Super Bowl champion football signed by Scotty Miller. It's free to subscribe to all these things. At the very least, you'll get to learn more about Celsius, but you may be a winner of a 1-month supply of your favorite Celsius flavor. So make sure to do that. For Matt Baker, for Matt Matera, for John, for Scott, for Taylor Jenkins, for everybody that helps us out here at Pewter Report, I'm Mark Cook saying we will see you again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Don't forget our big draft show here on Pewter Report's podcast. Out.